So clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Here.
Senator Douglas.
Here.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Pollock.
Here.
Senator Meredith.
Present.
Chairman Hart.
Here. All right. First item on the. Make sure you got my notes right. First item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes of the March 12th and April 9th, 2024 meetings of the committee. Please note the April meeting was for discussion only. Is there a motion that we may consider?
Motion.
I have a motion by Senator Douglas, a second by Representative Pollock. All in favor vote aye, all opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Thomas. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Yes. Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Total number of items on the agenda today are 790 in the amount of 845 am I reading? Yeah, that's right. $845,120,753.42. All vendors are registered with the Secretary of State's office. Next order of business is the consideration of the agenda, including the personal service contract list, personal service contract amendment list, memorandum of agreement list, memorandum of agreement amendment list, and the Kentucky Entertainment Incentive Program agreement list, and the corrections list, except for those items selected for further review. Do I have a motion to consider the contracts reviewed without objection? Motion.
Second.
Motion by Representative Pollock, second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. First item on the pool list first items on the pool list are with the Attorney General and are numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the routine PSC green list and numbers 2 through 51 on the MOA 50,000 and under gray list. If representatives from the Attorney General's office, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Civil Division. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Will Schroeder, Senior Counsel.
All right. Thank you, guys. And I do believe Senator Meredith has some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here this morning. Let me give a little historical perspective for the other committee members on this subject matter. Back in 2018, we had a contract similar to this that was under the then Attorney General Andy Beshear, and obviously large settlement involved with these opiate litigations that we have, and it looked like we were going to be paying millions upon millions of dollars from outside legal counsel to act on our behalf, and the feeling was that there ought to be some kind of cap on this to make sure the Commonwealth gets more than our fair share of dollars from these settlements. So what resulted from that was House Bill 198, which was passed in 2018 session, which capped those contingency fees at $20 million. And this kind of leading into the question, gentlemen, we've got 4 contracts here, same law firm, and the contract description that we receive, and you can appreciate, all we get is a thumbnail summary of what these things are. But for all 4 contracts, it looks like it's basically the same service. And I'll go back to the specifics of the statute. It says that the contingency fee shall not exceed $20 million, regardless of the number of actions or proceedings of the number of attorneys or law firms involved in the matter, exclusive of any costs, expenses provided for by the contract and actually incurred for legal services contractor. So, again, if they all fall within the same scope of services, it's a total of $80 million. Why do we kind of have this separation when it looks like the same body of work? And are we trying to sidestep House Bill 198?
Thank you, Senator. Certainly not trying to sidestep House Bill 198. That was a solid piece of legislation and actually helps these contracts move forward with some good conscience, to be perfectly honest with you. The reason they are carved out actually dates back, and from what I can gather from the Cameron administration, where the contracts with this firm, Morgan & Morgan, were divided up between, actions involving pharmacies, a different one for manufacturers, a different one for distributors, then a different one for those entities that distributed or manufactured opioids that went into bankruptcy. So you have 4 separate contracts. My understanding is that it was done to comply with the single use of a contract. The only active case we have where we've involved Morgan & Morgan using these contracts is involving Kroger. And Kroger operated in Kentucky as both a distributor and a retail pharmacy and at the wholesale level. Very unique situation. We only have one case. To the extent any recovery is recovered from that litigation, it's one recovery. It's definitely not going to be carved out into using 3 or 4 of these contracts. So the 4 contracts that were on the committee's agenda today are simply renewals of the contracts from the Cameron administration to make sure we could actively pursue the one active case that we have involving Kroger. And the Cameron administration had originally retained Morgan & Morgan under the previous contract. So there's no effort to skirt House Bill 198. To me, that's the reason we can even enter into these contracts and manage this sort of litigation.
And Mr. Chair, the one thing I would add is the amount listed, as you stated, the legislation capped at $20 million. The amount listed for contract amount is $20 million, but based on this being a contingency fee, we're putting the best case scenario forward, assuming that we can get the most out of our litigation in this effort. That is the absolute most. I know different ways that we could have done it, because with the contingency fee, it's obviously based on the outcome. We're assuming here by putting $20 million that is the best case scenario. And to your point, it's capped at $20 million.
So in practicality, it's going to be substantially less than $80 million in total, because we don't have that many cases that are out there. But I noticed that in one of the first descriptions we have, it mentions Purdue Pharma again. Isn't that one settled totally? Or is there something that's happening outside of that?
Senator, could you show me which contract you're discussing? I want to make sure I have the right language.
It's 2400002821. And the reason I'm asking about that one in particular, again, Senator Schroeder, you may remember this, that Purdue Pharma was the original pharmaceutical company that Attorney General's office went after, and that was under which Attorney General? I forget.
Mr. Conway,
Stumbo.
I believe.
No, Stumbo had it originally, and he said that this is going to be a $1 billion settlement. And if my memory serves me correctly, that there was a default judgment because the plaintiff's attorney, Stites Harpison, didn't provide answers to requests for interrogatories. In fact, they were kind of chastised and suggested by the court to put their professional liability carrier on notice. And once the default judgment, then again, Attorney General Stumbo said, all that's left is negotiating the final settlement. And I think even then, that was picked up by Attorney General Conway, who said, we're not going to settle for less than $999 million. But it was settled for $26 million we had another contract, $6 million of that going to Attorney General Conway's new law firm, and we only received $20 million out of potentially $1 billion settlement. And I understand that those records were sealed upon the final settlement of that case. So is Purdue Pharma still hanging out there anywhere? Do we know because the records are sealed?
Yes, and I'll refrain from personal opinions on the Purdue Pharma settlement, but the language in the description from this actually relates to the opioid bankruptcies, and Purdue Pharma is in bankruptcy. And this particular contract lists some other entities, such as Endo Health Solutions, who are also in bankruptcy. So this separate contract is allowing us to retain outside counsel to the extent we need to participate in those bankruptcies, whether it's Purdue Pharma, Endo, or other similarly situated entities. So Purdue is still hanging out there. I'm not sure of the details of the sealed record, but whether it's Purdue Pharma or the Sackler family, they are still hanging out there. There's various bankruptcies that we are, as our office is participating in, making sure we're filing the right claims and items like that. But to the extent those bankruptcies are ever reopened to allow further litigation within them, this simply allows us the opportunity to retain this law firm who's worked with the office for many years to do that. But in addition to that, as I think this committee should also be aware, we've issued an RFP over the last couple months and had some new approved law firms, who none of which we've contracted with yet, but it allows the office a little bit more flexibility to the extent we want to engage other counsel separate and apart from this law firm on different arrangements or different agreements. And, you know, we're not saying one way or the other what we'll do in those situations, but we're trying to give the office the most flexibility possible within the confines of the statutory scheme for capped recoveries to go forth on those. So yes, Purdue Pharma is still hanging out there with the Sackler bankruptcies and the Purdue bankruptcies and a lot of the reorganizations, just as a lot of these other entities are out there. We're monitoring, and if those are ever opened up to where they cause litigation, we want to be prepared to go after them.
For the other firms that are kind of hanging out there, that we're trying to get some settlement from, are we engaging outside counsel to do the final settlements of these things, or should that be handled within the Attorney General's office? It bothers me that we've got a third party, particularly something as obvious as the Purdue Pharma settlement, that we've got to hire somebody and give them $6 million to settle on our behalf.
No, not at all. To the extent it's simply monitoring bankruptcy, filing proofs of claims, making sure our proofs are updated, those are things we handle in-house, in office. The reason for retaining outside counsel to the extent we need to be actively involved in the bankruptcy cases is if any of those bankruptcies get dismissed for allegations of fraud or misuse of funds, and litigation were to again arise against those entities that are in bankruptcy, we thought, to be perfectly clear with this committee and frankly the Commonwealth, it best to list those out, have separate contracts to address that possibility. But to your specific question, no, we anticipate handling those in-house.
For all the other companies that we have sued and successfully won, are those records sealed as well, or just at Purdue Pharma?
I don't think so. I cannot state with certainty, but I do not know of any of those others being sealed, and I believe they're public record.
And Chairman, I'm not aware that any of those are sealed either. I'd be happy to, if there's ones that you think of in particular, if you'd like to email me, or happy to, look into any of those for you.
I certainly appreciate the explanation. When you're looking at $80 million, a lot of money, and I understood it, we've kind of shifted our focus from trying to get settlements to handling bankruptcies. You're saying that's with the exception of Kroger?
Yes, sir. Currently, that is where we're at, and we've all been on calls where there are potential other defendants out there for the Commonwealth. Nothing as large as the claim against Kroger. These are either small distributors, sometimes regional, sometimes they're not even in the Commonwealth. But we are monitoring those in-house, and to the extent, we have great lawyers, great staff, but if it goes full-scale litigation, we don't have the budget and full staff to actively prosecute big cases like that. But when it comes to monitoring settlements, participating in multi-district litigation, and working with other state attorney generals, we are well suited to do that and do it often.
Understood. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. Go ahead, Senator Boswell.
Oh, well, I just had one question. So just for clarification, the $80 million, where's that going to stay? That's a contingent. So where's that money going to be right now? Where's it today?
The $80 million it's somewhat of an idea at this point because we haven't recovered a dime of it.
Right. So it's staying with us. We're not spending anything today on that one.
No, sir.
I had a couple questions and you've answered some of them, but on the contingency fees, the contingency fee upon completion, where would we be at? I mean, I know it's going to be less than what is projected, but just for my sake, could you maybe explain a little bit more on that?
In relation to opioid settlements generally, or to the one outstanding case against Kroger?
The outstanding case.
You know, it's hard to tell, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, you know, it's hard to make a representation of what we think that case is worth, but we think it's worth many, many millions of dollars, where if the recovery were to come in, obviously there's always risk with litigation. But if the recovery were to come in, you know, frankly, we would hope to cap that $20 million because that would be the most money recoverable for the Commonwealth.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for that. Senator Douglas, do you have a question?
I do, Mr. Chair. I'm going to make a statement first because I sit here and try to empathetically think of what the public is hearing when we talk about these cases. And I hear them sort of assessing this as, let's get this straight. There are 4 contracts, $20 million each, $80 million total for one case that we don't know what's going to happen. But just in case they need that money, we want $80 million of our tax. They want $80 million of our tax dollars available, just in case someone decides that they want to do something. And this is not a criticism at all. It's just we wonder why our taxpayers are asking the question, what the heck are they doing? And this is a perfect example. They have no clue what's going on here. And you gentlemen have done a wonderful job of explaining it, and they still have no clue of what's going on here. And I don't know what we can do in the legal space to make it a little bit easier for our public to understand what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. We're not talking about grocery money here. We're not. And I know that we sit and talk about millions of dollars a day, but our public doesn't. And they are absolutely scared to death. And they have no control. I guess my question, Mr. Chair, so I'll get to the question. Can we, as the people who have been elected and or put in charge, reasonably give our public an idea of how long this is going to go on?
To the extent of how long it will go on, I'm not sure. I know our office's charge is to attempt to recover as much as we can to help alleviate, work on, resolve the opioid crisis in the Commonwealth. As far as the tax dollar comment, that's a very fair comment and concern. If we were sitting here asking this committee to approve the use of $20 million in tax-funded money, we'd probably have a wholly different conversation, but nothing in these contracts relates to tax dollars. The $20 million, for example, on the manufacturer's contract, that would actually come from the manufacturer. We're not spending any taxpayer dollars on these contracts. So the $20 million or even the $80 million, if you looked at them all separate, that's not coming from the taxpayer. The effort here is to recover money from outside bad actors. That if, I'm just going to use simple math, so no representation on what I think a case is worth. But if we were to recover $100 million in one of these cases from Acme Corp, then $20 million of that, if we used outside counsel under these contracts, would go to outside counsel. The taxpayers aren't paying a dime of it. You know, it's not an hourly fee. It's not a We're not putting these guys on retainer. We're not. It's kind of like the personal injury commercials that whether you like them or not, it's kind of they only recover if we recover. So we're not spending taxpayer dollars on it.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Thank
Senator
you.
Schroeder.
No, I just wanted to expand on that, Senator Douglas, because you do make a good point for the constituents watching on KET, and as my co-counsel here stated, if you're thinking of your constituents back home and they want to talk to an attorney maybe about a will or a trust, that's typically you go and you talk to them. That might be an hourly job where the attorney's charging by the hour, but if they go with a personal injury claim such as a car accident, that's typically a contingency fee. The attorney's taking that case knowing Senator Thomas knows that it's a risk, that you win some, you lose some. So there's the risk that they lose, but the law firm puts forward its resources up front. They pay for that litigation, and then their reward, the law firm's reward, is when the settlement comes in, they take a piece of that settlement. So to your point, and to my co-counsel here's point, it's not an hourly rate. We're not asking, certainly not asking for $20 million to come out of the general fund or anything like that, but going to that contingency, the personal injury, if you will, auto accident type way of thinking, these are contingency fees against these companies where if we have that recovery, then, and again, this would be the max, this is best case scenario. So while $20 million we all agree is a lot of money, that means that the Commonwealth has recovered even more against these companies, much more.
Well, thank you, Senator Schroeder, and thank you, Mr. Clark. That last 3 minutes, you have relieved a lot of people in the Commonwealth. I already knew that. They had no clue what we were talking about. I want to thank you for that explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm really going to try today to minimize my comments. But Senator Schroeder, you're absolutely right. I think the public needs to understand, and you explained the contingency fee arrangement very well. And I think the public knows pretty well what a contingency fee arrangement is. I think most people in the public know what that is. We are not talking about taxpayer dollars here. None of this money is going to come from taxpayer funds. So I think that needs to be made clear, very clear for anyone who's up at 9:30 this morning watching this, that this is not involving any taxpayers' money. Secondly, I remember when Governor Beshear was General Beshear, and there was a lot of consternation and fretting and angst over him hiring Morgan and Morgan to do work on behalf of the state. I was okay with it then because we all know here in this room today that Morgan and Morgan is the best personal injury firm in the country. Okay, and they have the resources to do it. They're a high quality law firm. And again, the state's not paying them to do anything. If they collect the money, then they get paid. It made sense to me then. I thought that was an overreaction by some of my colleagues, and I stand by that today. If General Coleman now, regardless of what party represents, I trust his judgment. He's a duly elected attorney general. If he thinks this is the best way to go, I stand by that and I support him. So those are my two comments right here. And I think we ought to approve this contract and move forward.
All right. Thanks, Senator Douglas. The next items.
Mr. Chair, could I
Go right ahead.
have a final comment about this? And I want to go back to the original intent of asking
All right.
these contracts be pulled. Again, it's to make sure that we're staying in compliance with House Bill 198. That's it. It's not an issue of whether it's taxpayers' dollars or not taxpayers' dollars. It's that we have a law in place that we expect to be adhered to so that we maximize our return on these cases that we resolve. You folks have certainly proven that today. Not to beat the dead horse, but I want to go back to this Purdue Pharma settlement again. And I think it ends some credibility to your discussion, Senator Schroeder, is we forget that these cases sometimes go on for years. Purdue Pharma started with Stumbo, then went to Jack Conway, then Attorney General Andy Beshear. So again, years. So these contracts are more or less kind of roll over because we've got to keep that continuity in that kind of litigation. But back, and you guys may not remember, but back during that initial litigation against Purdue Pharma, was outside counsel handled that, or did we do that within the Attorney General's office?
Senator, I apologize, but I am actually not sure, and I'm very hesitant to start making
I
guesses in
appreciate
front of your
that.
committee.
If you guys could kind of research that for me, I'd like to know, because if it is, and we've made a shift from we're not going to do it with the Attorney General's office, we're going to do it with outside counsel, and just curious as how that evolved. But that's another discussion for another day. But
We will look at that. That's actually a really good question. I have an inclination to know that I think I know how that happened. I know that the original contracts with Morgan & Morgan originated, I believe, under the Beshear administration. Whether other outside counsel was used prior to that, that's what I'm just not sure about.
all right, thank you. Appreciate the explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. We're going to go ahead and, if I could, items number 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the routine PSC green list, and I have a motion to approve those contracts. I have a motion by Representative Pollock. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Boswell. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Can you vote?
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Aye. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Now, if you gentlemen would just stay seated, we'll go to the next item that you're all here for. It's items number 2 through 51 on the MOA 50,000 and under gray list. Senator Douglas has some questions, and I'm so glad that they're about all of them at one time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a new witness, so I want to give him a chance to introduce
Yes, go-
himself.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Chris Evans. I'm the Executive Director for the Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission under the Attorney General's office.
All right, thank you.
And again, Will Schroeder, Senior Counsel, and members. Senator Douglas, made a great point in that last meeting. I know you have a lot of information, especially the ones that have been around when the original House bill was passed that dealt with the opioid litigation. But for members of the audience, for your constituents, viewers of KT, I want to take a second to just back up. And again, when we're talking about taxpayer dollars or where the money is coming from for the contracts, as members will recall, the way that the legislation was set up as recovery funds come in from different companies that make settlements regarding opioid litigation. It is split between the state and the counties, local municipalities, and the state's portion goes into a fund that is run by a commission of 9 members, 2 non-voting members. Then they, within that fund, look at the different grants that come in. So the dollars that we are talking about for these contracts, again, not coming from the state's general fund or a different fund, but rather from the opioid abatement fund that is funded through the settlement dollars of these cases.
Okay, Senator Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Schroeder. I appreciate that explanation. Again, part of our charge here as a committee is to make sense of the contracts, the multiple contracts that we have that fund our Commonwealth. And unfortunately, often there's misinformation that gets distributed. And there are a lot of things that are attributed to the general fund that are not part of the general fund. And I think it is part of our jobs to make that distinction between those two things that are going on. Because I know that in my discussions with people in my district and in my discussions with people across the Commonwealth, they see everything as coming out, or most everything is coming out of the same budget, coming out of the same bucket. and I understand, I empathize with their concern. And so that was the only reason I wanted to have this contract talked about, simply because the word lump sum, which means nothing to them. It's almost like, well, you have a blank check. I have no issues with, obviously, with what's going on. But again, I have more information than our public does. And so I don't mean to be, make anything inconvenient, but I think as elected officials here and as paid officials elsewhere, we owe it to our public to make things understandable, or help as best we can cause these issues to be understandable for them. So
Certainly understand that, Senator. Definitely not an inconvenience for us. We're happy to help in, getting that out, getting that information out. I think as the viewers watch, a lot of the settlements that we come in, we do send to the general fund. The money comes in for the general fund. However, with the opioid litigation space, there was the policy decision made a long time ago, obviously, that, so much havoc was caused by opioids across the Commonwealth. And that's when the General Assembly set up the commission and decided that there was going to be a specific purpose for how these dollars were distributed.
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If I could, do I have a motion to consider the contracts review without objection?
Second.
Motion by Senator Meredith, second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the pool list is with the Board of Examiners of Social Work and is item number 11 on the routine PSC green list. If the representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Hello, I'm on the Zoom meeting, Senator. This is Vanessa Jones, the Executive Assistant for the Board of Social Work.
All right, thank you so much. And I think Senator Douglas has a question.
Mr. Chair, my apologies. I have subsequently, since this was pulled, I've had my questions answered. So
Okay.
I don't really. So I move that we proceed with considering
Okay.
approval of the
I
contract.
have a motion by Senator Douglas to approve this contract. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Meredith. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye, and I want to congratulate Ms. Johnson on her excellent presentation.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the pool list is with the Department of Workforce Investment and is item number 19 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning, Chairman, members. This is Jessica Williamson. I'm General Counsel with the Education and Labor Cabinet.
Good morning. I'm Alan Gullett, Division Director of the Carl D. Perkins Vocational Training Center.
Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. And I believe Senator Douglas has a question.
I do, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much. I really missed you all, so that's why I'm going to have several questions here today. My question that I'm reading, when I read this contract, I see the amount that has tentatively been asked for. And then I read the explanation, which it says, provides funding for nursing services / care. But then it goes on to talk about the two people who work or who supervise and all that. Help me out. The explanation's fine, and I see the amount, but I don't see the correlation. I don't have anyone explaining to me what the 1.3 $5.6 million is for. And anyone reading this explanation is going to ask the question, wait a minute, we've got 2 people and we've got this much money. Tell me what else the money's going for.
Okay. We have, sorry. Our facility is a 24/7 residential facility. We offer services to vocational rehabilitation consumers throughout the state of Kentucky. So we have currently, I think, 130 or so enrolled now. We have nursing staff. And the main reason for this contract, and it's been in place for 14, maybe 16 years, we were losing nursing staff, and we needed to provide nurses 24/7 to be safe and secure, because we are dealing with some of the most vulnerable consumers. They have multiple disabilities. They're becoming independent, getting a training skill, and preparing to go to work. So being a 24/7 facility with round-the-clock needs, getting nurses at that time became more and more difficult. Increasingly so during the pandemic in 2020, when our nursing staff was pretty much depleted. We are getting some nurses back at this point. Things have improved. The contract, the most recent year, I can get the numbers, but we didn't spend the entirety of that contract. We have done some things to hire 18A staff in those positions, which offsets that cost of the contract, and it is much more cost effective. So the need is there just to provide a safe environment for our consumers that come in that are medically fragile, a lot of them.
And Senator Douglas, I just had a follow-up. I wanted to make sure that we understood your question correctly. Were you saying in the description of the contract, it says any combination of the 2? Were you asking if this was only for 2 individuals? Because it is for multiple. And I just wanted to make sure that we were conveying that clearly, that this is not just limited to 2 individuals, but it is for licensed practical nurses and registered nurses in more than 2.
I just want to make sure that that is clear. Often, again, we have to understand where we sit versus where our public sits. And there are a lot of things that we assume because we know what's going on. They don't. I'm really, really concerned about the amount of information, the amount of accurate information that we're providing or that is being provided for those of our public who are actually reviewing some of these things. I think sometimes we've gotten in a habit of thinking, well, we're doing our jobs and nobody is really looking. I can tell you in my district, I encourage my constituents to watch these meetings every time they come up. I encourage them to look at the information that we're going to be talking about and to make themselves aware of where their money is going. And respectfully, I hope my other colleagues here in the General Assembly are doing the same thing because it is their money. But I tell my constituents, you have to participate to be able to know what's going on. You can't be passive anymore because the information chain is suspect at best. So when I read an explanation that talks about 2 people and then I look at the amount of money, there's a disconnect somewhere. So perhaps we need to, in our descriptions of our contracts, provide a little bit more focused information in terms of why that money is needed and where that money's going. But no, you've answered the question. I thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any other questions?
Motion approved.
I have a motion by Senator Meredith to approve. Do I have a second? I have a second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Aye. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much for being here. The next item on the pool list are with the Department of Education are numbers 31, 34, 37, and 38 on the routine PSC green list and number 52 on the MOA amendment yellow list. Representatives are here. Please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. My name is Karen Worth. I'm with the Department of Education, the Division of Finance, or Budget and Financial Management.
I'm Elisa Hanley, the branch manager for pupil transportation at the Department of Education.
Jay Ritter with the Kentucky Department of Education Office of Finance and Operations.
All right. I do believe Senator Douglas and Senator Merritt have some questions. So, Senator Merritt, we'll let you go first.
Well, we are talking about contracts 31 and 38. Just make sure we're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
And I pulled these so that Senator Douglas could rest his voice, and because he's got several others he's going to do here. But no, seriously, it's just another one of those education opportunities. And again, the lack of information that we have just helps give some clarification of this. But we've got two positions that are management consultants. And let me talk about number 31, Mr. Ron Fairchild. It's $96,000. So this is for a 2-year period, correct? So it's really $48,000 per year.
That's correct. Yes.
Same with 38. And it's a rather broad contract description here, but it appears to me that both of these individuals are kind of like troubleshooters. That is, as you recognize an issue in a school or school district, that they may be assigned to go in and take a look at what's going on and report back to the Office of Administration. Is that?
So these two gentlemen actually do reviews for the Department of Education and provide us with any issues that may come about that they see. But they go throughout the state and assist with the 171 districts that we have.
So just these two?
We have 5 this year.
Okay. And how do they schedule these reviews?
KDE provides them with the list of districts, basically splitting them out between each of them depending on where their location is and their availability.
Does each district get a review annually, biannually?
We try to do annually, but if not annually, biannually. It depends on how many contractors we have for the year and what their availability is for us.
So do they go in announced or unannounced?
Both.
Okay. Then if it's announced, then administration knows what they're going to be looking at. I mean, it's already prepared beforehand?
Yes.
And if it's unannounced?
We contact the superintendent while the contractor is on their way and let them know that we're coming or that the contractors are coming and why they're coming, and they continue from there.
Well, what would prompt an unannounced survey?
If we were to receive a call from, for instance, a technician that states that they are being told to do something that's unsafe, or something along that lines, we may go in and check it out. The contractors will go in and take a look and see what they see and ask questions.
This is just a kind of a logistical thing, kind of contractual thing, but why aren't they just employees of the Department of Education rather than contract employees?
I believe historically, Senator, that we've always contracted these positions out. The reason behind that, I'm not sure why we haven't, hired 5 additional people to cover this state, except in some of my other areas, we do have KDE employees that are what we call field staff, that effectively do the same thing for attendance audits, for example. Of course, these are focused on transportation. And one thing I want to add too, these are a very important part of our, I think, review process. If we get a call from a parent that raises concerns, or it could be anyone that raises concerns with an issue they see on the transportation side of a school district, these contractors will go out almost immediately to check. And if they find something, they do have the authority rather to deadline a bus, meaning they pull it off the road, or if the driver records are not being maintained, this is in her branch, their bread and butter to make sure of that compliance. But to get back to your original question, sorry, I didn't want to veer off there. I think it's just historically we've never had full-time employees that did that job, at least in 15, 20 years or so. I've been there 15, and it's always been contracted out. And it may be a financial matter that was just cheaper back in the day to do it that way because of the regional cost and things like that.
Do you have much turnover in these positions?
No, sir.
How are they selected?
We have RFPs, they apply for them, and they are chosen from the RFPs and how they rate.
Is there ever occasion where they're called into a school district about a concern and they get there and say, wow, this is a concern, we're going to need more resources here?
Yes.
Does that happen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. I think Senator Thomas has some questions.
Yes. Tell me your name, the one in the center.
Elisa
Last name?
Hanley.
Family. Are these individuals called education consultants or ed-cons? Is that how they're referred to?
Personal service contractors, I believe.
I don't believe we call them educational consultants.
That's my only question.
Okay, Representative Chester Burton.
Thank you. Can you tell me about how often they go out approximately?
They are given a list of districts on an annual basis. So typically monthly, 2 to 3 times a month, they'll visit different districts.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Boswell.
Yeah, so you've given a kind of example. You're giving kind of one example. Can you give a couple more? I mean, for example, this particular person, he was here last year, so he's continuing on in this position. Do you have a list of the things that he did last year to earn this contract?
Yes, I do.
For each person?
Yes.
I wouldn't mind seeing more of those, please.
Okay.
That's all.
Representative McCool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These surveys, are they made available to public review? And when we're talking about, and the reason that it popped up in my mind, we've had a lot of issues with Jefferson with the transportation. If we could have seen some issues early, maybe there could have been some different approach. But I don't know. Are these made for public or only for internal for KDE to review?
Representative McCool, the department the work that the contractors are doing is a little more specific to like the mechanics of the bus, driver training records. Now, the issues that JCPS had would fall under, sort of that local decision. But our records are subject, I believe, almost all of them, with the exception of some private information for the drivers, to be subject to open records. So if you wanted to, for example, see the records on a specific bus, we would have that available for the public. Now, we don't publicly post that just because of the volume. There's a lot of buses out there, but it would be subject to open records and things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Go.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for numbers 31 and 38?
Motion approved.
Hold off a minute. We're going to go ahead. Let's go ahead and talk about numbers 34 and 37, and then we'll do a motion to on the green list.
Okay. Works for me.
Okay.
You're the boss today.
All right. Well then, Senator Douglas, I think you have a question, and Senator Meredith on both these. So
You can go first. On 34.
You go first.
Okay, I'm happy to.
Chair Hart, could I let my
yes, go right ahead and please identify yourself for the record.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Mickey Ray. I serve as Chief Academic Officer at the Kentucky Department of Education.
All right. Thank you for being here. Senator Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, we're renewing a contract to conduct an evaluation of the Kentucky reading academics.
How are we doing?
I am very excited to be able to share with you today that we will have the final report for the committee by June 1, and we do plan to share that with all of our legislative partners. This evaluation in the first year, they focus particularly on teachers. So teacher knowledge, teacher confidence in teaching literacy, and the impact of the professional learning program that's a part of the Kentucky Reading Academies. So they surveyed over 800 teachers. We have 4,000 participants in the Letters Professional Learning as part of the Kentucky Reading Academies. They did a survey, there were two, there was one in the fall and one in the spring, of over 800 professionals, over 800 educators. They also conducted focus groups with administrators and teachers, as well as classroom observations to see the impact of the learning and if that was translating into the student experience. And the work that we're doing in year 2 will focus specifically on student outcomes. So we'll be looking at Kentucky Summative Assessment data in a much broader sense, as well as the literacy coaches who will be placed in schools in 24-25. And so it will give us that last research question 4. It will take a look there, as well as expanding on their findings for research questions 1, 2, and 3 with the student experience.
May I ask one more question?
Yes, you may.
Are there any plans for longitudinal follow-up?
There will be. So you will see a contract soon for a new statewide reading research center that was chosen via RFP. And so they will be able to take the lead on this research agenda moving forward. But in the absence of a center, we wanted to have transparency in the way that we were utilizing the funding. We want to ensure that we are working with those with expertise in terms of that specific research methodology for evaluation so that we can know that we're making the right moves and communicate that effectively with all of our educational stakeholders and the general public.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Senator Meredith.
Mine's very brief. Just a kind of reminder for me that this is a result of a legislative mandate to have an independent of our
Yes, sir.
reading program. So
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And you already know 2-year contract. Yep.
So this will be just a 1-year extension, but 2
Gotcha.
years total. Yes, sir.
And when will we receive that report?
So June 1st, we will get the final draft of the report, and we want to publish that broadly. We want people to be able to read and to learn from that. We also will have 3 sort of white papers, so more consumable items from the report that are for various stakeholders as well. But June the 1st is when we will receive the final version of that.
Have you heard from either of our education chairs as to hear this during the interim session?
I have not yet. I know that on the first meeting on June the 3rd, we will be there to talk more about the State Textbook Commission and the connection to high quality instructional resources. So the chairs may choose to bring this forward, and I would certainly welcome that opportunity to share that in IJCE.
Thank you. I look forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Senator Douglas, I believe you have a question on number 37.
I do, Mr. Chairman. My question, and again, I know that we in California are now bosom buddies, but I'm trying to find out why we still go to California. Do we not have competent people here in the Commonwealth who can do this, other than the fact that we've worked with people in the past, which is really not a good excuse to continue to work with them?
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator Douglas, for the question. And I will say I do have Kevin O'Hare from the Office of Assessment and Accountability online if there's other questions that he may answer. But this was done as a competitive solicitation. We did do an RFP. This was the only vendor that responded.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve items number 31, 34, 37, and 38 on the routine PSC green list?
So moved.
Motion made by Co-Chair Meredith, second by Representative Paul. All in favor vote aye. All opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
I want to explain my vote. I'm an aye, but I didn't prompt Senator Douglas to ask the California question.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you so much. We have one more question for you, and this is on item number 52 on the amendment yellow list, the MOA amendment. And I have it's more for my understanding than anything, but You know, with the DEI issue in the media, and we're hearing a lot about it. There's been a lot of discussion on our side and on our level about it too. But I was just curious, how long has the Jefferson County Board of Education had a DEI director? Is this a relatively new position, or has it been there for a while? Or
You know, I can't really speak for Jefferson County. They are the actual employer, and then we are under a personal MOA with them for this particular gentleman to come to the department and work. He's been with us for the last several years, just the last 2 years as a DEI consultant, or I'm not sure what the correct words are, director of DEIB. This is the final contract, and when this expires on June 30th, we won't be renewing the contract.
Okay. Is there any other school districts that employ or have an agreement like this for a DEI director, or is it just the bigger ones?
No, not that we have at the Department of Education.
Okay. And my other question I had is kind of irrelevant since this will be ending in June. So I'm going to ask, is there anybody else that has any questions?
But it'll be ending in June of 24. Yeah.
If not, do I have a motion to approve the contract?
So move.
A motion by Senator Meredith to approve the contract. Do I have a second? Second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Nay.
Senator Douglas.
Explain my vote.
Go right ahead.
It pains me to vote aye, but we're already down the road. But and obviously, I think there are a lot of areas in the whole box of diversity, equity, and inclusion, since I don't use all the abbreviations because half our public doesn't have a clue what we're talking about, and the other half thinks that equity is equality, and they're not the same. But I'm happy to hear that this program is ending. I think a lot of the data that we are seeing, that we review, is showing it has not been a positive outcome for our students. And we are here for our students. And so, but we are here nonetheless. Thank you much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Senator Thomas.
Again, let me be brief. I think as a country, we're better off when we include everybody and all the opportunities and all the offerings that we have. And historically, that was not the case, and that was never a problem when historically we excluded certain groups from being mainstream in our society. Now somehow it's become a problem and an issue since we have included, women and Hispanics and African Americans and LGBTQ community and so forth and so on. Now that's become a problem. But we're a better country for it. We're a country that's conceived in the idea that all people are created equal and that everyone should be viewed the same in America. So I have no problem with any DEI opportunities or offerings that we have in our education system, and I hope we do more of it in the future. I proudly vote aye on this matter and would like to see this continued in the future.
Representative Chester Burton.
A brief comment. Whether it's DEI, affirmative action, or whatever it is, when we try to erase what it really looks like, for me, I truly believe they're just going to change the name to something else. So you can dismiss it or change it, but at the end of the day, unity is power. And as long as we realize that, I will always vote yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
I'll explain my vote. I vote no, and I'll kind of echo the sentiments of my colleague, Senator Douglas here. If anyone knows his story, there's no reason in the world why he should be sitting here today if we buy the premise that our country is blatantly unfair. He's risen to the challenge. He is successful, and he's did it through self-determination. I think that's what's missing a lot from our society today. we can decide our own course, our own future, if we're willing to make the commitment and make the sacrifice. I vote no.
Chairman Hart.
I'm going to vote yes, but I do want to give a brief explanation. I think the intent behind some of these programs the intent is good, but the delivery and the unforeseen outcomes sometimes create problems. But I am going to go ahead and vote aye since this program will be ending, and there's no sense at this point not to see it to fruition. But I do think in the future we as a society need to look at these types of programs. We want to be inclusive of everybody. We don't want the unintended outcomes sometimes that comes from some of these programs where it seems like we are alienating people and not including everybody, even though that wasn't the intent of the program. But I will vote yes, and I think the motion carries. So thank you so much for being here. The next items on the pool list are with the Department of Insurance, and our numbers 44 and 45 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record and come forward.
Yes, this
Are
is
you
Sharon Clark. I'm virtual, and I'm the commissioner of the Department of Insurance.
okay? And you are by yourself?
Yes, sir.
All right. I think Senator Meredith has some questions.
You are correct, Mr. Chair. And it's very straightforward. We have two contracts with INS Consultants. Both have the same contract description. One's for $580,000, one's for $820,600. Again, the same contract description. Why are the two separate contracts? What's the difference in the two?
Yes, Senator Meredith, and thank you for the question. One contract, the 2120, is for the health benefit plans, which we know as traditional insurance. But in addition to the traditional insurance, the department has 18 other types of health products, insurance products, that are sold in the Commonwealth. So contract 2121 is for the traditional health benefit plans, and the 2122 are for things like disability insurance, cancer insurance, vision, dental, etc.
Okay, I guess. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. I'm still kind of confused by it. If it's the same firm, and I'm not going to belabor this, but I assume there's two different RFPs.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And we try to keep these these products different because the health benefit plans, as we know, are so, and they go to the exchange and what have you. So it's almost kind of like a different set of numbers as opposed to the other type of plans, sir. So it was for administrative reasons.
I understand that. I appreciate that. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Senator Boswell.
What are the other bidders on this contract?
Yes, sir. This was bid out in 2022, and there were 5 other contract bidders for these 2 contracts. They didn't bid equally. There wasn't 5 bidders for contract 20, and there wasn't 5 bidders for 2022. They were split. But anyway, the entity INS that received this did have the lowest bid that was submitted at that time, sir. And they also had the practical experience and the knowledge that we needed.
Okay. I'll just make a comment. As I read these contracts, there's so many. We've got piles of them, obviously, here. And I continue to be concerned about the amount of reviewing and auditing and things that are going on in our state government. It just seems like that we could do better.
Okay.
Sir, I was having a little difficulty hearing you. I'm sorry, but let me just expound a little bit. At the Department of Insurance, our main mission is to protect the consumers, but we also have to maintain insurance companies' solvency so that claims can be paid. Before any health insurance rate comes to the Department of Insurance, it is prepared by actuaries that work for those insurance companies. When those rates are received at the department, we do not have actuarial staff on hand. I could not afford them. They're not located here. So to make sure that those rates that are being submitted to the department are not excessive on the consumers and that they are justified rates, that's the reason why the department, in order to protect the consumers, that we have these rates scrutinized and make sure. And there have been cases in the past, sir, where rates that have been submitted to the department based on my actuary's experience and their contracts with us, we end up denying those rate increases for companies. So that's the need for it, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve the contract as reviewed without objection?
So moved.
Motion made by Senator Meredith, second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you so much for being
Chair,
here today.
members of the committee.
Next items on the pool list are with the Economic Development Office of the Secretary, and our number is 59 through 62 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. I'm Katie Smith. I'm the Deputy Secretary and Commissioner at the Cabinet.
Good morning. I'm Matthew Winger. I'm the General Counsel for the Cabinet.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. I have a couple questions on number 59. Is this relationship with this vendor, is this a long-term relationship, or are they new to us, or?
So Mr. Weiss has been the vendor and the contract since 2011, and then his firm merged over with. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. His first name's Victor, so Victor.
Okay.
I can pronounce Victor.
All right.
So they merged, and they're now covering all of Europe.
And this is just mainly for education purposes for me, so I can understand. But is this common for practice for us to hire foreign companies representatives and?
It's so we can have representation overseas, and they can actually go and meet with our prospects and companies international in that area, because it's going to be very expensive for us to fly staff over to try to have those meetings. And so they represent us, attend seminars and conferences over there, and then they also bring us leads and work with us on the leads that we have here when they have foreign ownership in Europe.
And do they ever come over here and meet with you guys?
Yes, sir.
So that there's
yes, sir,
at least one face-to-face, I guess I should say.
More than one, yes.
Okay. And what type of successes have you all seen in the past with these types of relationships? Been good, bad, mixed?
No, they've been very good. So I have some stats I thought you might ask. So since January of 2020, we've had European-owned companies that have announced $2.2 billion of investment here in Kentucky and 2,400 jobs in Kentucky. And our top foreign direct investment is actually from Europe is Germany, and they've had $784 million and 1,300 new jobs. I think in the top 5, the United Kingdom is also in the top 5. Japan, I believe, is number 1. And we do have a representation in Japan as well. Those are the 2 countries that we have representation.
All right, great. So it sounds like it has been a success.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have on number 59. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for number 59?
Motion approved. Sorry.
If there's no other questions on number 59, Senator Meredith has some questions for 60, 61, and 62. And then,
We're doing this.
Then we'll do your motion.
Thank you, sir. Please forgive me for my exuberance. 3 contracts, same scope of service. Why 3 contracts?
In case there's a conflict. So by statute, our tax increment financing program requires a consultant report. And please understand, this is not taxpayer dollars. So as part of the program, they have to do an economic impact analysis, and it has to show net new. And so each of the vendors are on contract, and they come in, and when the project comes in, they have to actually front the money, and we put the funds in an escrow account, and then we hire. And a lot of times, in case there are conflicts, we have another vendor on contract that we can utilize, because it is a statutory requirement that we have to have these studies performed.
Are these all renewals?
They are, yes, sir.
How long have you had a relationship with these companies?
It was RFP'd in 2020.
Right. We do an RFP we do renewals. We do the original contract for 2 years with two-year renewals, and then we RFP it every time after that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. Now, would you like to make well, is there any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval. Senator Boswell has made a motion to approve. I have a second by Senator Douglas. And this will be for 59, 60, 61, and 62 on the PSC green list. With that being said, Ms. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Aye. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Katie, I can't think of your last name, but
Smith.
Smith. Very simple.
So hard.
But an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
You represent the Cabinet Economic Development well.
Thank you.
So is that a yes?
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes. Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much for being here. Next items on the pool list are with the Kentucky Employers Mutual Insurance, and are items number 71, 81, and 83 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Hi, good morning. I'm Allison Smith, Associate General Counsel for KIMI.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. I have a question on number 71, and Senator Meredith has some questions on 81 and 83. So we'll, my question, and this is more just like an educational thing. I don't really understand the contract because there's a $0 amount, but can you maybe explain how this works and give us just a real quick summary of what Kentucky Employers Mutual Insurance is? Because you kind of look like a state agency, but you could also be a private agency, so it's just kind of confusing.
Sure. So KIMI is the largest writer of workers' compensation insurance in the state of Kentucky. And this is a vendor that provides settlement opportunities for our injured workers. So folks that have a workers' compensation claim with a policyholder that's insured by KIMI. Those injured workers, we are responsible for their indemnity and medical benefits. And so this vendor allows for different settlement opportunities for injured workers. So they can have more flexibility than what would be offered in a traditional settlement, but those settlements are still approved by the Department of Workers' Claims. And I will share with you, you asked about the cost. This is at zero cost to KIMI. It's also at zero cost to the injured worker. And so the vendor is paid by receives a commission from the annuity companies themselves.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for 71? If not, Senator Meredith has some questions for 81 and 83.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Chair. And it's kind of a similar theme I've had throughout this meeting. Is both of these contracts are for human resources consulting. It looks like there's some overlap here. So my question is, why two contracts? And I'm always sensitive about spending money outside of Kentucky that we could spend here. And why isn't Gold Standard Consulting capable of doing both of these contracts?
Sure. So these are two different HR consulting contracts that were procured via RFP. They are both fee for service in that we only pay for the services that are rendered to KIMI, and they are performing two different services for us. So Gold Standard is our board of directors HR consultant, and they would assist KIMI with any sort of succession management needs that our organization may have. Horizon Performance, they are providing leadership training to our internal staff. So if we have folks that may be new to management and have never supervised folks, this would be an opportunity for them to receive training before they step into a position that they haven't held before. Horizon Performance is actually located in Lexington, and so we do, while they're I think, from North Carolina, they are a local company that we are working with face to face.
You know, the other issue is North Carolina with being the Tar Heels and Duke Blue Devils, so.
I know. I can assure you our HR consultant is a UK fan.
Well, with that, Mr. Chair, if no other question, I'll make a motion.
All right, Senator Boswell has a question.
That conversation stirred up a question for me. So, did I understand you say that you have people that are hired to management that have no leadership skills, that need a little additional leadership training? It seems a lot that someone would be hired for a management position that wouldn't have ability to be able to have some leadership.
We have folks that are maybe frontline workers that have been technical leaders in the jobs that they have done, but they have never directly supervised someone. So this would be an opportunity for them to receive additional training before they begin supervising for the first time.
Okay, I guess that's the way government works. I owned a large business and I had employees, supervisors, and I don't remember any. Maybe we could have been more successful, but I don't ever remember any leadership training.
Okay. I have a motion by Senator Meredith to approve these contracts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye, and I really want to thank Ms. Smith for your presentation. I thought it was a really good presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye, and I echo Senator Douglas's comments. Excellent presentation. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Very well prepared. Appreciate it.
Chairman Hart.
I vote yes. Motion carries. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day.
Next items on the pool list is with the Kentucky Housing Corporation and is number 29 or 129 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Sam Thorner. I'm the General Counsel for Kentucky Housing Corporation.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, and I think Senator Meredith has questions.
I do appreciate you being here. This is very simple, straightforward. Is this like a contingency contract as well, that it's not to exceed 1.2 million?
Not exactly. So so KHC administers a loan. We service our own loans, and as part of that, when there's a foreclosure or a bankruptcy, we have to use outside counsel. So they are paid on a per matter basis. Mm-hmm. And so those funds are reimbursed from the insuring agency.
Okay. So again, it is kind of a contingency because it's based on the number of bankruptcies are filed. And what's it look like right now? Are we seeing an increase?
We currently have about 500 bankruptcies and about 200 loans that are in foreclosure, 250 loans that are in foreclosure out of our loan portfolio of 28,000. So
that's great, but are you seeing any trending one way or another? Is it getting less? Is it getting more? Kind of get a feel on what the economy is really doing.
So after the pandemic, there were a lot more foreclosures because there was a moratorium on it. Mm-hmm. So there was a large number right after the pandemic. So it's kind of come down from that.
All right, excellent. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you so much. Any other questions?
Motion approved.
Got a motion by Senator Meredith to approve, second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Pass.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
The next items on the pool list are with the Transportation Office of the Secretary, and our numbers 151 and 158 on the routine PSC green list, and number 210 on the routine MOA pink list. Representatives here, Oh, the transportation has asked for a deferral on numbers 151 and 158 on the routine PSC green list. So if I could I have a motion to defer?
Second.
By Representative Pollock, second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Do we have anybody here? What about the other one?
For 210, yes.
Okay. All right. On item number 210 on the MOA pink list, they've also asked for a deferral. That's why I was,
We're here.
oh, well, come on forward. I'm sorry. And please identify yourself for the record.
I am Laura Hagan. I'm the Director of the Division of Purchases for the Transportation Cabinet.
Hello, I'm Christy Walker, Director of Driver's Licensing.
I'm Jill Bishop. I'm the Assistant Director for Driver's Licensing.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for being here. I got a couple questions. First, could you all explain to me what's derived citizenship status? What derived citizenship status?
It's just the citizen status that they come in with, whether that's H-1B. It breaks it down, different statuses.
So that would be like an H-1B worker or something applying for a driver's license or something of that nature. Okay. And I guess under this program, most of the, like H-1, they're in the country legally, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is the SAVE program actually a system to make sure aliens get entitlements, or maybe explain that a little bit more to us?
It's a program that they do provide us with all their INS documents. That is the only way they can get an ID or a driver's license.
Okay. All right. And I guess the one question I had too was why are we spending $111,000 of our road fund money to get this information? Isn't this something we could get without having to spend that money, or what's that process?
Well, it's a federally mandated program. So, I mean.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe I need to talk to my congressman because I don't understand why we're having to pay for that.
Yeah.
But
the federal government charges per.
Yes, per issuance of. Anytime that we use SAVE, we have to pay for it. That's for any individual.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have. Does anybody else have any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve the contract?
So move.
Have a motion by Senator Meredith. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Boswell. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, ladies, for being here.
Thank you.
The next items on the pool list are with the facilities and support services and our numbers 31, 33, 34, 36, and 38 on the PSC Amendment Ivory list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Sam Ruth, Commissioner of Facilities.
Scott Baker, Executive Director, Division of Engineering.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. I think Senator Meredith has some questions.
Yeah, mine's not about the contract specific as much as it is the process, because you look at the purpose for the amendment, and each one pretty much says provide additional design services for work as directed by the Commonwealth. I'm looking right now, particularly at number 34, increased by 101,000, which brings the contract total to 183,000. That's over double the original amount. What's the process? I mean, I'm assuming these contracts are awarded. Here's your scope of work. Oh, and by the way, we want you to do this, or do we need you to do this? Is this driven by change orders, or is it true design issues that we need additional expertise on? I'm just, and
Yes, sir.
what bothers me is when I was a hospital CEO, sorry to share your war story with you, but had 26 expansion projects, and after about my third or fourth one, I noticed that we were getting a lot of change orders. And I'd managed our architects said, guys, you need to do a better job on the front end of this because I don't want to do those. It's just very costly to do. So I guess that's clarification I need. Are we really expanding the scope of services for these, or are we doing change orders that these folks didn't think through?
And to your point, these are design contracts. So these are our design services teams. It's who these are for. The one in particular you mentioned for item 34, that project is for Department of Corrections various water tower improvements. So the original contract was to go out and do evaluations of the water towers at all of the various penitentiaries. And then within that original RFP and scope was expansions of that scope to then develop the projects as were needed by priority to repair, replace, or whatever had to happen with those particular water towers. So the original contract was to go evaluate, and now this amendment is to actually do the design services for the Roeder Correctional Complex and the Kentucky State Penitentiary Complex. And then there will most likely be additional extensions to this contract in the future as additional funding comes available to repair the other water towers that were evaluated and determined to need repair, but currently there's funding not available. Because the original design contract RFP was written for expansion as additional funds became available for continuity of the design team throughout all those water towers. That's pretty true in all of these except for the very first one, item 31, which is was extended as a result of the contract running long with the construction contract ran long, caused the contract administration portion for the consultant to run long as well. So under that particular contract, we had a deductive change order from the construction contract of $64,000 of liquidated damages for late finish that we deducted from the construction contract. But at the same time, we had to pay the consultant for their additional time to manage the contract through completion. And that's the $37,000 add for them. But again, that money was more than recouped in our loss on the other side. So does that kind of help explain?
I think so, but let me explain it back to you so we're sitting on the same page. And again, we're talking specifically about 34, which you say the elements are pretty much the same for all these other contracts that I had pulled, is you're saying that they were awarded the contract to do an assessment of those areas. It's not practical to include that in the original RFP, the additional work, because you don't know the extent of
that
the work.
assessment's going to determine that.
So that's where they come back. But where's the check and balance to make sure that I mean, you got the fox garden hen house here is they're doing an assessment, but then they're coming in and say, well, now we need to do all this additional work. So where's that check and balance?
Well, in the reports in which they provide that show us the clear issues within those water towers, in that particular contract, that's where the checks and balances be. So again, they have to provide us back very detailed reports on those evaluations of those water towers and what issues are seen and what items that we need to deal with going forward, and whether or not, in this particular instance, the seriousness of the issues with that tower justify total replacement or repair. So, I mean, that evaluation of that is done by Department of Corrections in our office, then to review their very detailed study and evaluation, and then determine which projects to roll out first and what sequence.
So you get a detailed report. It comes to you guys, and you're going through it and saying, yes, this is something that needs to be done. Okay, got it. All right. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Senator Boswell.
Thank you. So I have a general question, not about any one of these particular contracts, but in a general sense. So when we're talking about architectural costs and engineering costs, are these based on a flat percentage, or how are we determining what we pay? In other words, for example, if a project is bid, and is there a flat, in some of these cases, a flat charge for engineering, 10%, or for architectural, how do we determine, is there a flat cost, or are all these negotiated out? Are there some bidders on, for example, engineering that are bidding 10%? Are there some bidding 8%? It seems like that what I've seen over the last couple of years is that it seems like it's a flat rate for everything.
So work that's performed under these type contracts is negotiated, and it's negotiated as the project develops. So in order to negotiate an initial cost, especially on these particular, but on many, most all, I would say, it's very difficult to negotiate at the very front end until you fully develop the scope of work of what you're going to be doing, and then you negotiate the remainder of the scope of their contract for the design services to get you through phase C and ready to advertise documents. And then there's a flat fee base typically for what we call phase D, which is the construction administration portion of the contract, where they're going to be administering the construction process through it. That's normally based on a flat fee that's broken up by the number of months of construction.
Okay, can you give me an idea then what that flat fee? I mean, I've got a friend that's in construction management business. He charges a flat fee, 15%, to build homes or build commercial buildings, and so that's his right to charge whatever he wants to. But as you're bidding as you're taking bids on these contracts, so you say there is a portion then that involves a flat fee, and is that flat fee a typical fee for all architectural and engineering services when it comes to that portion?
Again, it depends on this particular scope of the project. In other words, the construction administration fee for a $200 million hospital is going to be much different than the construction administration fee for a $500,000 equipment replacement project. So it's still a percentage. We average in our it's rare that we see our fees in excess of 10% of the total cost of total project. We try to keep them well under that in the 8.5% range. It's usually where we look at that on the back end to make sure, and that's kind of where they try to stay in the design side. It's really a rotating scale. Larger the project, the lower the percentage kind of thing that happens there in those, as you would expect. But that's kind of how that's done.
Okay, well that's I just, as I look at these contracts, it seems like over a period of time I am seeing a lot of what the percentages are the same, and it indicates to me that maybe we're not getting the amount of, I'm not saying in this particular contract that we're not getting the proper amount of bids when everybody's bidding the same percentage. Thanks.
There's no other questions. Do I have a motion to consider the contracts?
So move.
Motion by Senator Meredith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion passes. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. The next item on the pool list is with behavioral health, development, and intellectual disabilities, and is item number 22 on the routine MOA pink list and number 6 on the MOA amendment yellow list. No.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Craycraft, and I'm Deputy Commissioner for the Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities.
And I'm Alan Brenzel, and I serve as the Medical Director for the Department of Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities.
Thank you all so much for being here, and I think Representative Pollock has a question.
Thank y'all for being here this morning. Narcan is obviously a hot topic of discussion. I know it is in my community, in my district. Share publicly here today kind of that particular program, what that's doing, the success rate, just kind of an education part of that this morning.
Certainly, this is a project that ensures the availability and promotes the availability of a life-saving opiate overdose reversal agent, as you mentioned, naloxone. The Department of Behavioral Health, in collaboration with the Department of Public Health and this vendor, have centralized the distribution of naloxone that's intended to reach the public. And some recent numbers over the last 12 months, over 111,000 specific units of naloxone were provided. So we're up to about an average of 10,000 per month distributed. We have record of at least approximately 6,000 reversals, and that's a vast underestimation because we only learn about a reversal if a person requests another supply. But we are averaging saving 500 lives a month in this state, and these are individuals that remain with us and likely and hopefully enter recovery at some point during their recovery journey. And so this contract is critically life-saving. It's expanding each year. It's at this point 100% federally funded through SOR dollars that come to the state from SAMHSA. And their priority for us is to decrease the number of individuals dying of overdose. And so this fits specifically with that required mission. About 50% of this goes to public health departments, but it also goes to other entities. This vendor also receives some other funding from other state agencies to provide law enforcement first responders with naloxone, which can be an inordinate cost for our local law enforcement and first responders. And now there's a new website called findnaloxonenowky.org. And this will make available to anyone information as to where they can get and access naloxone. And our hope is that they will also be able to mail it directly to individuals who cannot reach that. So this is, again, a life-saving contract.
One of my questions was the distribution part of it. Obviously, first responders, this website. Talk a little bit about schools. What's your thoughts on that?
Schools are another area that we need to reach because parents come on school property. Kids have family members that might need this. And so we have participated in a recent what we call opiate saturation conference that's sponsored by SAMHSA. And we're in the process of developing a strategic plan and looking at areas where we may not be reaching individuals. And I know school systems are one of those. It's incumbent upon local school systems to request the supply, but this funding these schools would be eligible to request and receive naloxone from this contract and our partnership with the Kentucky Pharmacy Education Research Foundation.
Do you think is there training involved? As an individual, I go to your website, I get this. Is it pretty much a simple way of checking your blood sugar with a?
Yeah, it's very, very simple, and we have a variety of ways of providing the necessary training. Many of these might be provided at community events, and at that event, there would be an individual who would demonstrate and illustrate. We have an app available that we partner with other funding that trains individuals on how to use it. Fortunately, the nasal Narcan is very simple, pretty foolproof. It's purchased in a format that's easily used by the lay public. We do fund some IM injection because there are individuals and some first responders who prefer an intramuscular injectable form, and so that this funds both a combination of nasal as well as intramuscular naloxone.
Well, awesome presentation. What was the website one more time? You might have to spell that one particular word.
It's findnaloxonenowky.org.
.org. Now, spell the naloxone.
Naloxone, it's NALOXONE.
XONE. Okay. So thank you for the presentation. Very informative. In my hometown, basically, loved ones have been lost by their families, and we feel like, obviously, if this was available, they could have been one of those 500 a month.
And we thank you, and if we do believe this is working, we have not completed final analysis of the Kentucky numbers for 2023, and those will be released soon. But the CDC has released information that it's very hopeful, and Kentucky will show a decrease in overdose deaths, and contracts like this have allowed that to happen, and the bipartisan efforts to fund the opiate response are critical for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, and Mr. Chair, that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Senator Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to approach this in a little bit different direction. And I want to make sure our public understands what it is that I'm asking. Did I hear you give the figure of $10,000 per month?
Correct.
Okay. In the healthcare space, there is a concern whether we're actually saving lives or we're just prolonging addiction. There's absolutely no dispute about that. None. Two things I'd like to see, I'm really looking forward to seeing, are the data on those people who are being narcotized 2 and 3, 4 times a week, the same person, and those who are entering, in that group that is entering a drug treatment program, or those versus those who are actually somehow resolving their substance use disorder. There's no doubt this is a program that can prolong lives. There's no doubt. But I just want to tell the public that there is a huge concern in the healthcare space about whether we are saving lives or whether we are prolonging addiction. I think that we really need to ask and have those discussions, which a lot of people don't want to have, or those are things that people don't want to talk about because, well, we're kind of trying to hold people accountable, and maybe we shouldn't hold people accountable, which is exactly what we should be striving for. The other thing is, I see that this has the same agreement description, and I know you don't have this with you, but if we look at our yellow sheet number 6, number 2716, and Mr. Chair, I apologize because you may not even have mentioned that, because it says you operate an opioid antagonist distribution program in partnership with the Kentucky Department of Public Health, and I see we have 2 different contracts, and again I share some of the things that Senator Meredith said, and I just have to ask why.
Sure, that the contract on the yellow list is actually a modification to the current year contract. And so that is a 2-year contract, and that modification will take that contract up to the 10.7 amount. For the next fiscal year, that contract is in place for the year, but because we have not yet received our Kentucky opioid response, our state opioid response grant for next year, it's only a partial year of funding. So that's the first 4 months of funding for that program for next fiscal year.
The number 6 is the first. The number 6 yellow is the first 4 years, or are we looking at the pink sheet?
The number 6 is the 2-year contract. That's the current year contract and for last fiscal year, and then the other is the start of next fiscal year 25.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Thomas.
Brenzel, Dr. Brenzel, Alan Brenzel.
Dr. Brenzel, yes. I want to make sure I understand this contract, the 2.8 contract, is federally funded.
Correct.
We use it federally.
Correct.
And this contract is saving 6,000 lives a year for federal funds.
So we are saving, we have evidence that it's been used in reversals approximately 6,000 times in the last 12 months. Correct.
Well, you're going to have my vote.
This is purely life-saving.
If there's no other questions, do I have a motion to consider the contract reviewed without objection?
I make a motion.
Motion by Representative Chester Burton and second by Senator Thomas. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
I would explain my vote. Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I think this program certainly prolongs lives. Repetitively prolongs lives. I'm really in the bucket where I hope we can find a pharmacotherapeutic agent in the very near future that will help modify the receptors, that will also help prevent the prolongation of people who are in this terrible circle. But I thank you all for what you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Thank you for your work, yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Now could I have a motion to approve contract number 6 on MOA amendment yellow list?
So move.
Motion
Second.
motion made by Senator Douglas, seconded by Senator Thomas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes.
Representative McCool. Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Senator Meredith. Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you all so much for being here. Next items on the pool list is with the Department of Community-Based Services on our items number 42 and 46 through 49 on the routine MOA pink list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. Good morning. Doesn't matter. Good morning. My name is Amy Storner. I work as a program specialist for the program Kentucky Strengthening Ties and Empowering Parents. That is run through the Department for Community-Based Services, the Division for Prevention and Community Wellbeing.
All right.
And I'm Heather Hornbuckle. I'm also a K-STEP program specialist with DCBS.
All right. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here. Senator Douglas, I believe, has questions on number 42.
I do, and thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Either of you ladies could help me out with this particular answer. Could you somehow supply information to our public about past results that we're seeing from this program?
Absolutely. So what K-STEP is the acronym for Kentucky Strengthening Ties and Empowering Parents. And what that program does is a prevention program in Kentucky was implemented to address parental substance abuse that is placing child safety at risk. We couple intensive in-home services with quick access to substance use disorder treatment. So essentially you're coupling 2 services with each contract. And as well working in conjunction with child welfare services, We place emphasis on quick access to treatment and increased collaboration between DCBS and the providers, the in-home providers and the substance use disorder treatment providers. We also work with many community partners to eliminate barriers to treatment. So with this funding, we eliminate barriers of transportation, drug screening, payment for services in the absence of Medicaid, and concrete supports for families participating in the program. It is a long-term program that offers support for 6 to 8 months. And being a family first prevention program, the goal is to prevent removals of children from their homes and placement into out-of-home care placements.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you so very much for that brief description. My one question is, are there any written guardrails or expectations of those who participate and are served by this program?
Absolutely. This is a very intensive program. It is a phased program. There are 4 phases of the program, starting with more intensive, more hours in the home, more hours of substance use treatment, and it is phased down throughout the 6 to 8 month typical.
I understand the program.
Uh-huh.
I'm asking about the people that we're serving. Are there any written expectations of what it is that they are to do to continue in the program?
Yes, sir. So there's a brochure and an informational pamphlet that we are reviewed by DCBS workers out in the field with them that outlines every expectation regarding their participation, communication, attendance at drug screens, attendance at appointments. Absolutely.
Yes, I'll also add, our framework for our organization kind of outlines with each phase expectations that the clients must meet in order to move on to the next phase. So they've got to move through those stages of change within substance use. So they have to be progressing through their treatment, abstaining from substance use, attending their appointments, attending their drug screens, and complying with those services that are offered to them.
Is it possible that I, and if any other member of this committee wished, could have a copy of that brochure at some point?
Absolutely.
I'd love to review that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. And I think Representative Pollock has questions on numbers 46 and 49, or through 49.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there's 4 contracts there, obviously substantial amount of dollars there. Talk about, if you don't care about, a little bit about that program from those 4 actual contracts, what that is doing, kind of what's going on. Give us a little results there.
Sure. So I'll start with first saying that those 4 separate contracts represent DCBS service regions. So it's the same program being offered across 51 counties in the state, and then it encompasses 4 of DCBS's service regions. And so those contracts are all just broken up by region. KVC and Ramey split one of those regions, so no duplication of services there. And then in terms of success, I think Amy's got some information there.
So just to give you some information regarding outcomes of the program, we have lots of data. I will talk about state fiscal year 23 because it's the most recent data that we have. So during fiscal year 23, this program served 1,068 children in the state of Kentucky, who at the end of successful closure of the program, 91.5% of those children were able to remain in their home and not be removed to out-of-home care placements. And so that saved the state a lot of money. For instance, the cost per child for this program for state fiscal year 23 was $6,801.53. If you look at, with the absence of this program, if those children were placed into foster care instead, that would have cost us $73,550,404.60. So not only are we saving tax dollars, but we're reducing trauma to children and families, and we're keeping them in their homes.
Thank you for that. One more question, Mr. Chair. I've noticed different vendors, just kind of, I look like there's 2 of the 4.
Right, so KVC and Ramey E-Step, those are our 2 contracted in-home service providers. And then we also contract with substance use disorder providers. Those were not pulled, but the particular ones that were pulled were for our 2 different in-home service providers that we contract with throughout the state.
Any benefit to working with one vendor, or I was just kind of curious why we're dealing with 2 different.
So they have different offices in different areas of the state. It's more of a geographical situation.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Boswell.
Thank you. So the program itself, over the last several years, are you seeing more need, or is the need declining based upon the service that you're providing?
The need is increasing. As far as, I think it's, goes hand in hand with the opioid pandemic, or epidemic rather, in the state. The need is increasing. So foster care numbers have drastically decreased with the inception of these prevention programs, but there is a greater need for these, yes.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, can I entertain a motion to consider the contracts reviewed without objection? This will be contracts 42 and 46 through 49. Motion made by Senator Boswell. Second by Representative Pollock. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Aye.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Aye. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool?
Yes.
Representative Pollock?
Yes.
Senator Meredith? Chairman Hart?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, ladies, for being here.
Thank you.
The next item on the pool list is with the Department for Public Health and is number 131 on the routine MOA pink list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. Kathleen Winter. I'm with the Kentucky Department for Public Health. I'm the state epidemiologist and director for the Division of Epidemiology and Health Planning.
All right, thank you so much for being here, and I think Senator Boswell has some questions.
Well, first, we have an explanation. Would you just give us a general a description of what we're doing here?
Sure. So this contract is part of a portfolio of various contracts that we've come and testified on a few times over the last couple of years. So this is federal funding to provide resources to community-based organizations. We fund a number of churches, nonprofits across the state to promote vaccine confidence in the community, really working with different groups across the state to find better ways to outreach vaccine messaging and promote access.
Okay, and what specific groups are you talking about?
For this contract, it's the LGBTQ community. That's the target population for this specific contract. But across the portfolio, we work with a number of different communities and churches and organizations.
What are the specific impediments are the things that are in the way of getting these vaccines to this particular group?
So this particular contract helps promote vaccines that are specifically important to the LGBTQ community. So for example, Mpox vaccination or monkeypox vaccination is an important vaccine for this community. Not recommended for the general public, but recommended for certain individuals who have maybe HIV or other high-risk factors that make them at increased risk for this infection. So this is able to do that targeted outreach to those individuals that we think are highest risk.
Okay, well, that answers several of my questions. Is this a bid contract?
It's part of an RFP that was open and we allowed multiple applications. So this has been ongoing.
And so you had multiple bidders on this particular contract?
Not this particular contract. So this RFP was open to community-based organizations to apply to do vaccine promotion among their subpopulations across the state. So this is one of the vendors who has applied to do this work in the state.
I just want to say I'm concerned anytime I see taxpayer dollars going particularly any particular group of people versus the general population of the state. I think that's the last question I have.
All right, anybody else have any questions? Senator Thomas.
I remember you from January.
We had a good time in January. Well, February.
February, I remember that well. At that time, you presented this as being going to be made available to both the LGBTQ community in urban areas of Kentucky, Louisville, Lexington, Northern Kentucky, and in the rural part of the state. You particularly interested in the rural part of the state. I don't see that in this anything about rural in this current presentation. Are you still going to try to reach the LGBTQ community in the rural part of the state through this program?
Yes, Senator. So some of the outreach activities are across the state in various communities. So for example, working in Moorhead, working with all of the largest universities across the state, Western Kentucky University, Eastern Kentucky University, Northern Kentucky, of course, U of L and UK. And so really partnering with organizations across the state.
Okay. Well, I'm sure it comes as no surprise to anyone here at the committee that I'm very supportive of the LGBTQ community. And I know members of that community who live in rural Kentucky, because I visit them from time to time, feel isolated, don't get the support that they might receive in my hometown of Lexington or other urban areas. I think we should do more to reach out to that community in rural Kentucky, again, to embrace their needs, particularly in the healthcare space that you're talking about, and provide them the kind of treatment and care and concern.
Yes, we agree.
That's it.
All right, if there's no other questions, do I have a motion to consider the contracts reviewed without objection?
I move that we consider without objection.
I have a motion made by Senator Thomas. Do I have a second? Is there any other motions to be considered? With no other motions, contract moves forward for review.
Thank you.
Is that correct? All right, thank you so much for being here. The next item, let's see. Next item on the pull list is with the Medicaid services benefit and is number 207 on the routine MOA pink list. If representatives are here, please come forward and identify yourself for the record. Didn't have a second motion.
Good morning. I'm Lisa Lee. I'm the Commissioner for the Department for Medicaid Services.
Thank you so much for being here, and I think Senator Meredith has a question.
Well, certainly do, and I appreciate Commissioner Lee waiting in bated anticipation over the last 2 hours to get to talk about this. And obviously, a big contract, $395 million, I think, all federal funds, and big program for non-emergency transportation services. And you and I have talked about this subject before anecdotally. I hear a lot of complaints about service, and it's certainly not a criticism of you or the Department of Medicaid. It's a big animal to try to swallow. But are we looking at changing the program in any way to make it a little bit more responsive and easier to Medicaid recipients?
So this program has been in place for several years. I've been with Medicaid over 20 years, and this program has been in place since I have been there. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Do we look at changes? Yes. Recently, we made changes in our regulation. We, too, hear complaints. For example, one of the complaints that we hear is that individuals who have a vehicle in the household, it's very difficult for those individuals to access services if that vehicle is not registered in their name, for example, or if it's not operable, or if it's used for work purposes only. So we have changed our regulation to allow individuals who have a vehicle in the household to receive transportation, non-emergency transportation, if that vehicle is not registered in their name. So we have seen a reduction in the number of denials for individuals who have been denied non-emergency transportation for a vehicle being in the household. So we think that is a really good benefit for our members to be able to increase that access. So yes, we do constantly look at this program. We're currently looking at other states, currently surrounding states, to see what they're doing. We're looking at a couple of reports that have been recently produced, one by the Medicaid and CHIP Payment and Access Commission, MACPAC. They have a very comprehensive report on non-emergency transportation, the individuals who utilize that transportation and the benefits that it provides.
Well, probably the most frequent complaint I hear, aside from denials, and I appreciate y'all taking the action you've taken with regard to that, but it's just timely access for transportation. And are there other states that are doing something innovative to address this?
Well, I think that in Kentucky with the access, we have a requirement in place, a 72-hour notice, for example. But we do have provisions that will allow individuals who have emergent or urgent needs. Emergency, of course, is a totally different transportation method. But if someone does have an urgent need, we will allow, there's a different process for them to get those services a little bit quicker. But that 72-hour notice is in place because our brokers have to arrange trips, and they have to make sure, number one, that that individual is a Medicaid eligible individual and eligible to receive those non-emergency transportation services. They have to make sure that the transportation is to a Medicaid covered benefit, and they have to make sure that the transportation modality is appropriate for that individual's needs. For example, some individuals are in wheelchairs and cannot just use a taxi, for example. So it takes a little bit of time to prepare that ride for that individual.
Well, I wonder if there's something that maybe we could do or should do outside the Medicaid program. And one of the communities in my district, Morgantown, Kentucky, I really commend them for being as aggressive and progressive as they are. They offer transportation services for their community, and it's free to them. And I wonder if we need to look at something just outside the Medicaid program.
We do work closely with the Office of Transportation Delivery. They do coordinate trips, for example, with other transportation providers if it's not a Medicaid-covered service. And just for your information, in 2023, we provided over 2 million trips to individuals in the Medicaid program. And our rate of utilization is about 15% of our population utilize our non-emergency medical transportation, whereas nationwide it's about a 5% average. So Kentucky does have a higher average utilization rate in our Medicaid members than most other Medicaid agencies.
I think that's because we're a poorer state.
I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it could be that we have a pretty good system in place. Again, it's not perfect, but we do have a good system in place. We can always look for improvements. And it could be that the bulk of our individuals who utilize our non-emergency medical transportation program or services are individuals who are disabled, do not have driver's license, cannot operate a vehicle.
Can you tell me briefly what's covered under non-emergency?
Any transportation to a Medicaid-covered service, physicians, doctors. We do cover for pharmacy. That was a pretty new and benefit in the scope of this program because, again, this program has been around for a long time, and I think we added pharmacy only in about 2018. So any pharmacy trip, any trip to a medical service, if a child is being transported, we do allow the parent to go along. And that's one complaint that we do hear quite often is if a family has more than one child, they can't take all of their children in the vehicle. It's the parent and the child who's being taken to the transportation benefit. And we do have some providers, for example, our adult days facilities, they are enrolled as transportation providers, and they will pick up their individuals who are taking part in their adult day activities. They will transport them, they get paid. And we also enroll foster parents. So foster parents get paid to take their foster children to and from medical appointments.
Well, we know that 60 to 70% of medical issues are based on social determinants, and sometimes just, I need to go to the grocery store. Is there any provision for something like that?
Not currently. We do have, however, our managed care organizations do have flexibility with their transportation, and we have many of our managed care organizations that do provide transportation to educational services. For example, they will provide transportation for someone to go take their GED. They will provide transportation for individuals to go on job interviews. But currently, we do not cover those non-medical to groceries, to social events, for example. We do not cover those. And in the event that was examined, I believe that they can only be covered under the 1915C home and community-based waiver programs and not in for the general Medicaid population.
Well, certainly have no problem with the contract. I just want to make it better, more responsive, and so I know you do. And to that end, however, we can work with you to try to address these issues. Certainly we commit to that, but that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Senator Douglas.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee, and our apologies for having you sit so long. I do want to sort of ask a question about another aspect. It seems like I'm always asking about another aspect of this whole situation because there's no doubt that our Medicaid program is a very, very costly program. And I heard you mention that some of our transportation providers have to do a lot of checking to make sure that this person is eligible and all those kinds of things. Are there any written recourses for our providers who ultimately transport people who are not eligible for the program? Because what we're getting into is we're putting the onus in the wrong, at least one of the things I feel is we're putting part of the onus in the wrong place. We're making our transport providers responsible to make sure people are going to be honest. And that is sort of backward.
So we do have a checks and balances in place. We continually review all of our claims information, and on the date that a non-emergency transportation ride took place, we have to have a corresponding medical event to a medical appointment. And we went through an audit. It's been several years ago. It was a federal audit, and they showed that we did have a very good system in place to make sure that only Medicaid eligible individuals are being transported in this program.
But the onus is still on the transport team to do the checking,
Yes.
which takes time, which takes equipment, which generates cost to them. And I'm just trying to find out if there is a mistake, why our transport teams or transportation companies have to bear the entire brunt of that mistake. There's no recourse toward the person who made the illegitimate call. They know whether they are eligible, and I don't know why we sometimes act like, well, because they're on this particular program, they're not very smart. It's not very true. It's not true.
So in the Medicaid program, every provider, even non-emergency medical transportation providers, should check Medicaid eligibility because individuals do come on and off of the Medicaid program. There is a little bit of a churn in the program. So it is very incumbent upon the individual who is receiving the payment, which is the broker or the provider, to check to make sure that that individual is eligible so that they are not at risk if that individual has lost eligibility or for some reason is no longer eligible for the program.
Okay. Thank you very much for explaining that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to clarify, who does the transporting?
So the Department for Medicaid Services contracts with the Office of Transportation Delivery. The Office of Transportation Delivery puts forth RFPs, requests for proposals, for regional brokers. Regional brokers receive a capitation payment. This is operated very similar to a managed care organization. We pay a per member per month. Those regional brokers receive those capitation payments, and they contract with providers throughout the state to deliver those services.
Okay, thank you. That answers that question. Now, just one last question. So the cost you're talking about here on this particular contract is $358,000, which are federal funds. Are there not administrative? Well, I'm trying to find out what are the costs to Kentucky taxpayers under this program. What about who administers this program? Are those not costs borne by the citizens of Kentucky?
The administration of this program, this program is federally funded, federally and state funded. 70%, approximately 70% is federal funds. The remainder is state funds. The cost of the administration is, I think that contract was heard at a previous GCRC meeting, and that is the Office of Transportation Delivery.
Okay, so the contract that we're talking about here today, it says it's really, maybe it should say that it's 70% federal and 30% state.
Yes, I've got my financial. That is true, right?
I mean,
yes, that is true. It should be
okay, yeah. Well, I think probably, maybe in the future, possibly that should be broken down because when I look at these, I see state funds, agency funds, federal funds, and I'm looking at this. I'm assuming that this is 100% federal funds, but there are in fact state costs involved in this program.
Yes, sir, there are.
All right, if there's no other questions, do I have a motion to consider the contracts reviewed without objection?
Motion.
Motion by Senator Meredith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye, but only because Miss Lee is so good at her job.
Senator Thomas. Aye. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock. Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Please take a moment to review items 11 through 19 on your agenda, which are non-exemption requests pertaining to the 2-year budget biennial contracting restrictions.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Senator Meredith to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Douglas. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Thomas. Representative Chester Burton. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Pollock. Senator Meredith. Chairman Hart.
Yes, motion carries. Before adjournment, our next meeting will be June the 11th, 2024, 9 a.m. here. And if there's no other comments or business, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Senator Boswell. We are adjourned. Sure.
Glad you got to